Hiya, hello, my name is Hikaru, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to redraw some sprites that I had initially made, but I didn't like the way that they came out because I felt like everything was too saturated, too dark, didn't have enough light elements, so I decided I was going to redraw them. This is, of course, my OC Avery. She kind of represents a more updated version of how I see myself. While Claire was the beginning, Avery is the current. She kind of has a lot of my attributes, like curly hair, I always wear chokers, and usually a necklace. She's part android though. She has an influx on how she feels emotionally. She's still trying to figure out emotions, especially because she is human with android elements in a dystopian world that's not very kind to either one of them. There's many parts of herself that she's replaced, like parts of her thigh or her entire left arm. I had to think about that for a second. But I have her in various different poses, so I can use it when I'm like talking in these videos like how I am now. A fun fact, Avery actually had a septum far before I did, and was the inspiration and push that I needed to go and get my own septum. I have drawn Avery always in her classic oversized big green jacket because it always makes me think of Futaba from Persona 5. She is by far my favorite character from the entire Persona franchise. I say this as I've only played five Royal, 5 Strikers, and now beginning to play Persona 3 Reload. But she is by far my favorite character. I love that she is of the Hermit Arcana. She resonates me a lot. I even did a cosplay of her a while ago, but I don't really have any pictures. But yeah, going into, a bit more. She's my pngtuber. I use her when I'm streaming. Whenever I do occasionally stream, I'm trying to get into that more. That has gone through a few accidents within her dystopian world, caused her to have robotic limbs and even upgrades. She even has like a spectacle right next to her left eye that helps her when aiming, because she uses her specialty is guns, usually donning dual pistols, kind of like Devil May Cry Dante with his ebony and ivory, or even a sniper rifle. She's very handy when it comes to disassembling and reassembling guns. And this comes as like an inspiration from my older brother in real life. He always played COD, and he still does, and he got me into it. He would often use me as a testing dummy to practice his trick shotting. But with him, I learned how to disassemble and reassemble a PS2 controller, with it working far more efficiently than it did before the disassemblement. He even currently has his own business now for fixing computers and such. But within the world that she's in, she's part of a rebellion against rogue robots and rogue humans. It's a roleplay that I'm fleshing out with one of my friends. The specific sprites that I've drawn are talking, explaining, embarrassed-ish, happy, showy. Like, I want to draw one that she's drawing, so I can have that for when I'm drawing in live streams. So instead of my pngtuber just sitting there talking, I'm sitting there drawing with a little tablet. I'm glad that as I've gone on with my art journey, that I've gotten better at consistency, in a sense. I still completely don't like line art. I would always rather have my art be in a sketchy form, which is usually what I do when it comes to my other drawings, which I can put up here for you guys to see. But for these, I've made sure to put it in line art, just so it's a bit more consistent, not nearly as messy when I'm using it in videos. I'm sorry I haven't uploaded much. There's been a lot going on. I haven't had much time to sit and record. I don't typically have it as silent as it needs to be, so it kind of throws off my wants or need to record. But yeah, I always try to draw Avery in the way that I kind of view myself. She's her own person, but, has many traits of myself. I always really love her jacket. I always have trouble drawing it because it has like floop out parts that doesn't necessarily make sense outside of its style, but I enjoy it. Something I enjoy the most when I'm drawing but also is my biggest downside is that I draw very quickly. It never usually takes me long to start and finish a piece. I'm almost never doing line art, so I always just usually like clean up my sketch, and even then I'll still leave guidelines to have that sense of authenticity, I guess you could say. I often get things finished so quickly though that I can never explain in words or even really show how I got from point A to point B unless I'm recording it like I'm doing here. And even then, that's usually why sometimes like I'll be sitting there drawing and I'll be like, ooh, I should probably hit record so I can then show people. Now here I've skipped it ahead a little bit. I decided to draw the line art on my own time so I wouldn't have to have that like in the video. And now I'm just, dropping down my base colors, soon to add shading and highlights, giving her the different elements of herself. I gave Avery green eyes because my mother has green eyes, like greenish, hazel, grayish eyes, and I always found it really pretty. I actually made a drawing of my mother and I when I was younger, and I can show it here as well. Something I love about the design that I do for Avery is the fact that I can simplify it down so much, and that since she has curly hair, I don't have to be like direct with my lineage and figuring out where everything needs to go. But yeah, I plan to use the sprites a little bit more going forward when it comes to speaking, especially if I'm like showing things off in like different videos and such. Avery's style also does come from Futaba as well, from Persona. Not only because of the green overcoat, but also the double tank top shorts conundrum, because that's how I also dress in person. Something that I bet you all will notice, is that when I'm drawing, I have a habit of not remembering what I'm doing. So the way that I'll shade and highlight something from one drawing will completely vary when it comes to the next one. And it kind of becomes apparent, and I don't mean to do that. I just kind of forget how I did something. The funny thing about digital art is I only like coloring within digital art because it's a way faster process than if I were to do it in person. When it comes to traditional art, coloring always takes way more time, and I'm quite impatient, which is my downfall. I really need to practice patience more. And as soon as I complete a piece, I immediately want to show it to people, even if it's not fully finished. So I'll post it or share it to people, and then I'll realize the errors in my work, go back and fix it, and then just start sharing it again to my friends, or deleting posts and sharing it once more. What do you guys think? Do you think it matters too much? I can pull some more of my drawings and show them as examples now. Should I try to focus on improving my line art, or should I just continue making art the way that I enjoy most, which is no line art but just cleaning up my sketch? Because I enjoy line art sometimes. The only time I necessarily do line art is when I'm working on my webtoon, because I want it to be more pristine and webtoon looking, which I am preparing for a bulk release. That one of the 3 chapters that I'm going to be bulk releasing for my webtoon, so please look out for that. I never usually know what to say when it comes to these things, so I try to just babble and write things down for topics for me to talk about to keep it entertaining. Something that I've started doing, I don't know if I show it here, but when I am putting highlights, like the ambient lighting and such, I will then grab and add glow layer and put it over my line art layer. I even do it when my line art is sketch, and it kind of helps bring the piece more into the reality that it's in. I actually have an example drawing of that I did of Claire recently, actually, where I did this, and I can show you examples of what it looks like when there is no ambient lighting on the line art as well, versus when it is. This is mainly just my excuse to show off more of my art. What are some ideas I should try to do when it comes to making my posts more engaging for people to view and watch? I've heard that my voice is quite calming, so it's nice to just kind of listen and watch me draw. But what are some things I should talk about, you know, ramble on about, things that I should draw and which will make it easier to ramble? Like, what are some things that I should do? I always feel like it's really easy for my art to get a little dark when it comes to when I'm doing line art for some reason. When drawing Avery specifically, there was some sketch that I did recently where I usually nowadays have been drawing only on one layer unless I need actual hard dark, I guess you could say, and if I necessarily need strong highlights, that's the only usual time. But because I started learning how to paint, and also like working with traditional with charcoal, I learned how to work only on one layer. So I try to transfer that into my digital art because I feel like it's just easier that way. So a lot of the art that I've made recently, I've been just doing all the rendering, highlights, and shading all on one layer. And then I will go in, and if it needs like a darker push, if I need to push the values more, I'll use a multiply layer or I'll use an add glow layer. But when it comes to like my webtoon, or when it comes to making art like this, like sprites I'm gonna be using, that's gonna be like, you know, kind of like cut out, I use a multiply and add layer just to make things a little easier for myself, or else I would spend way too long on these. Granted, I don't mind taking time for art, as funny as that sounds. I'll take time for it, I'm just impatient with it. I've always worked quickly to get a drawing done. Not because it's a conscious thing, but just because I work fast. I will zone out for hours. So that seems to be it. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I will try to post more. I'm gonna try to figure out ideas of things that I can draw, or if I should start like, you know, uploading like video game content, because I really enjoy playing games. However, I play them so much to the extent that I wouldn't necessarily be able to show anything new, like reaction wise. But do you think that matters? Once again, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.